Next, let's talk about the 2 muscles per day, 4-day per week split. So for this one, we actually do start pairing complementary muscles together, so it's already anatomically better than the last one. And the pairings that this split most frequently consists of, or should consist of, is a back and biceps day, since you're working out your back and your biceps together during all pulling movements, and a chest and triceps day, since you are working out your chest and your triceps together during all pushing movements, and then a day for your legs, and then finally a day for your shoulders, core, and then any other accessory work you might want to do. So anatomically, these muscles do go together. You're doing a day of different types of pulling and then some accessory bicep work, a day of different types of pushing and then accessory triceps work, and then a day for all of your leg work, and then a day for everything else. So this is great because these muscles do work together, so you'll have more of a synergistic effect. However, there are some complications because, for instance, you also do work out your front delt anytime you are pushing. So you wouldn't want to train your shoulder day after your chest day for that reason. However, there's another complication in that you also train your rear delt anytime you are pulling. So you also wouldn't want to put your shoulder day after your back day, which means your shoulder day would have to go after legs. Leg day would have to separate your shoulder day from the other pushing and pulling days. So it could work out like that. But let's come back to that. I also want to talk more about the frequency implications and how this ties together. So when it comes to frequency, this split can be optimized by turning it into a 5 or 6 day a week split. That way some or even half of your muscles are getting trained twice per week, which is optimal. And while the rest are only getting trained once per week, which is suboptimal, they'll at least be in a rotation where they'll get trained more frequently on some weeks. And so if you love this split, it can be optimized by cycling through it more than just once per week. You got a 4-day split but a 7-day week. Why not just do 6 days of the split in that 7-day week and then have 1 rest day? So that higher frequency makes it more optimal. However, that brings us back to the fact that you wouldn't want your shoulders and abs to be trained next to back or chest. So if you're separating those with legs by training back and biceps on day 1, chest and triceps on day 2, and then legs, and then shoulders and abs, and then instead of getting 3 days of rest before going through the split again, you wanted to just go and do 2 extra days. Well, then that would mean you would do back and biceps or chest and triceps right after shoulders. So in many cases, there will be some overlap in the shoulder training because your front and rear delts are already getting trained in pushing and pulling. So that's one way that this split is anatomically suboptimal, and it's also suboptimal for frequency. When it comes to loading, however, this does allow for you to lift heavier loads, since it will be at least 4 days until you train that thing again. So back when I used to do a little bit of heavy strength training below 5 reps in every session, I liked this split, all right? I would do it as a 4 or a 5 day a week split, so that at least one muscle group was getting trained twice per week most of the time. And I found that it was just optimal for me with my heavier loads in that it gave me extra recovery time. But I was still doing pushing and pulling and leg movements together naturally as they are supposed to. However, while this is good for loading, volume-wise, it has still the same problem as the bro split, and that you end up doing all of your weekly volume for each muscle group on just 1 day. And that muscle group gets trained oftentimes just 1 day per week. So not only is it suboptimal frequency like the bro split, but it's also poor volume allocation. The volume should more ideally be spread out over 2 or more training sessions per week, okay? So the pros I would say with this are that you're at least training muscle groups together and allowing for higher loading by giving yourself more rest time. And another pro is that it is possible for you to train some muscles twice per week with this. However, I would say that generally the frequency is actually a con, all right? As is the volume allocation, which to be optimized should be spread out. So the split is actually kind of well balanced when it comes to pros and cons. However, I would say that it is more on the con side. And again, it's something you should only do when you're trying to get used to heavy lifting and your body really needs extra recovery time. And you should really only do it if you're not going to do it just 4 days per week. But I would say that except for using it temporarily, generally speaking, there's too many cons to use it consistently. It's just not the best way to allocate your volume, and there's too many complications. And I oftentimes hear of guys skipping days when they're doing a split like this. I think that it just doesn't allow for enough consistency. I would say that this type of training wouldn't be sustainable and wouldn't be giving you fast enough progress, all right? It would be just too slow. You'd be spinning your wheels in the mud. That's what happened with me. It helped me to get used to lifting heavy loads and doing high volumes. But after I got used to those things, it wasn't like this caused me a lot of growth or progress or success. So for me, there's too much controversy with this one, too many complications, and I do not recommend it.